Hi, Voice Buffalo family. Thank you for joining us. This is our coffee hour. We're going to be talking to our faith leaders. We have Pastor Kwame, and in a minute, I'm going to introduce her. But coffee hours is a way to reconnect with our community, to give them information that is not widely known, and to bring them into a lot of the work that we do. So Pastor Kwame, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, so I am Pastor Kwame Pitts. I am the pastor of Community of Good Neighbors, which is a faith-based community where we do justice work around food sustainability. I also am a chaplain or a campus pastor here in Western New York for 3 of the campuses. That's University of Buffalo, Buffalo State, and Damon University. And I also am reorganizing Oasis Community, which is a safe space for those who identify as spiritual but not religious.
And what are you currently working on?
What am I not currently working on? So currently one of the biggest focuses for Community of Good Neighbors is CGN's mobile food pantry. This is a food pantry that was started in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic, and we were an emergency food pantry. But recently, over the last year, we have focused on health and wellness, so we're doing a lot of fresh produce year round. I've got great relationships with a couple of places here in state. And so therefore, every Wednesday we are going out on the east side of Buffalo for starters, the first, second, and third Wednesdays of the month. And we also are taking this free campus market. So we're also taking our mobile food pantry to our campuses to also give them fresh produce, because produce is expensive and our students need to eat. So those are some of the things that we're definitely working on. In fact, we just had a Bengals Dare to Care Day where Buffalo State students and staff and faculty came and painted our bus. So I'm really excited about getting our bus up and out of the way and on the road.
I'm glad. I'm a fellow Bengal. I graduated class 2010. I'm very excited that my alma mater was there to help you.
It's amazing. It's 20 people, so I really loved it.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of people. And how can folks get involved with the work that you're doing in the community?
So one of the things that's really important for us at CGN is definitely needing volunteers. So just for some very churchy language, Community of Good Neighbors, it belongs to the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and we have sort of a sub-headquarters here called Upstate New York Synod. And so it's just me really kind of running everything. So I really need volunteers, people who are passionate about food sustainability, food justice, who want to connect with community. Because one of the things we're hoping to do is not just be on the east side, but wherever people need to have access to fresh produce. We know there's a great need on the east side, and that's where I'm kind of rooted. We have over 163 households represented for CGN, and this is not just people coming to church, this is me going out to people and just building relationships. So if you want to get involved in any way, shape, or form, you can always email me at cgnbuffalo@gmail.com, or you can go to our website, cgnbuffalo.com. So that's one way definitely that you can get in contact with me with some of the things that we're hoping to do in the next year.
You're a pastor in the city of Buffalo. What can you talk about the importance of voting?
Yes. So originally I am from the Chicagoland area, so I moved here 3 years ago. And I think one of the reasons why voting is so important to me, not only as a faith leader, but also as a person of African descent, is because the fight that our ancestors went through just to vote, especially during the civil rights movement and even before that. Just the right to be heard, to be counted, and for us to be able to make a change in our community and also throughout our state, regionally, even nationally. I think even though a lot of people say, well, voting doesn't change anything, we hear this time and again, and I can completely understand. But I think the only way we're going to take back our power is if we actually make that noise. We are the constituents and we can actually make changes. And probably the biggest hurdle is the fact that so many people are so disenfranchised because stuff hasn't happened. Or I've heard even elders saying that they've never voted. And there's a lot of education that needs to go in. As a faith leader, I don't particularly have a particular leaning stance, but I think it's very important that we're voting for better care, for sustainability, for empowerment, for encouragement, for our education, for cleaner places to live. We have a lot of environmental racism as well as systemic racism that we're dealing with right now. And just really just to take back what is ours, what is rightfully ours, as a part of humanity.
Now, the church was a huge part of organizing votes. How do you talk to your congregation about voting?
So many of the people I interact with are on the east side of Buffalo. I don't have a traditional congregation, but my people are in the community. I usually just try to encourage people, asking them questions, sort of engaging in conversation like, so, have you registered to vote? And if they tell me no, I want to hear the reasons why they don't vote, and then try to guide them not in the direction of who they should vote for, but why it's important to vote. I tell them that just like and for many traditional congregations, just like we vote for positions in our church council, is the same thing. We want someone who is going to be from the community or for us that wants to make positive change. And change can be scary. So that's another reason why a lot of people don't vote, because they're like, well, I voted for this person and we vote someone new. They want to bring all these new ideas. I'm not used to that. I don't want that. I want things to stay the way they say, the way they've always been. And that's understandable and that's real. But we have to do changes in order for us to actually succeed and move ahead.
Now we're coming up, we're actually just a few weeks away from the midterm election. How is that important to our community?
I think it's really important. I think we have seen the devastation what happened in the 2016 election. We don't need that repeated, especially with reproductive issues for women. And other things that are happening, even for example, in Florida, we had 16 Republicans who voted against aid for their state. So I wonder how their constituents are looking at them and thinking, well, you're not voting for aid so that we can recover from this horrific hurricane. Even with our school system here in the city of Buffalo, you want people who are actually going to go and say, hey, we need to up this education. We want to have the best education, just like all the private schools. Coming from Chicago and coming from a place where I was in the public school system because my mother was a public school teacher, I've also worked in a private school and I've seen the difference. The curriculum should be the same across the board. So we need to be able to invoke people who are going to be a part of, I think it was a councilman here. Being in Chicago, it's aldermen or alderwomen, and we have a whole big city council. But you want people and also you want people who are going to be engaged in working with the constituents and not just sitting in some ivory tower somewhere. Those are kind of the important things. And we may sound like a broken record, but we have to keep repeating that so people will be like, okay, I'll vote. Okay, I'll do it. And also like getting people to the polls, like call them up and be like, hey, I'll take you to the polls. I have no problem taking my food pantry bus and taking folks to the polls. I will do that. If it comes down to that, well, I don't have any seats on the bus, sorry. So everybody be standing, I think I'd get in trouble.
So what is one thing you want viewers that may watch this later on to walk away with?
That we can't give up hope. There's a lot right now, I think, that people are overwhelmed, especially some of our young adults, being a part of campus ministry and talking with students on the particular campuses. There is a lot of they don't feel heard, or they're very angry. They want things to change. Even in my own home, speaking with my own young adults, I've had to have some very in-depth conversations about why they vote. And not just, again, because our ancestors died trying to write the vote, but literally they can make change. They can do that. And they've got, it's all about organizing, right? Mm-hmm. So for example, I've had a number of my two young adults have talked about some of the things that Buff say that they think needs to change. I've told them that you need to organize your peers and your fellow classmates and do that work to get those things changed, because otherwise they're not going to do it for just because you're there. Even for my husband, who is a graduate student at UB, the same thing. There's been this conversation. I'm like, well, you got to organize folks. Organizing folks is the way to do it, because once they see the fact that you're angry and you're riled up and you're ready to change, yes. And so I think there's a lot of negativity and toxicity in our laws and the policies that are being put out there. We got to change that. We cannot let them beat us, and we cannot just be beaten back into submission where we just kind of go with the status quo, because otherwise that's going to lead to this is why we have a lot of mental health issues right today, not just because of the pandemic, but because of the fact that people didn't think, well, nothing's going to change. Oh no, we've got to do that. Otherwise, our people are going to fail and we're going to disappear. We can't be eradicated. The people who are fighting for it cannot be eradicated and will not be eradicated. The empire of the state will not take over. It will be us standing at the end.
So I have a call to action for you. What will you do to make sure 100% voter participation happens within the city of Buffalo?
That's a tall order. I think one of the ways in which I can do that is continue to just have conversations with folks, whether I'm on the campuses or each week when I'm out on the east side talking with my folks to make sure, like, have you all voted yet? Are you registered yet? One of the other things I have tried to do before, a couple of months ago, I actually tried to meet with a couple of councilmen who actually are over the east side area. Well, they ghosted me. So I'm not gonna stop until they meet with me, because I've got 4.5 pages of complaints and concerns from the people that I serve. So I'm going to make sure that they're going to the polls, that they're passing the word that, hey, maybe our councilmen are not doing what they're supposed to do. Maybe for these midterm elections, maybe these people don't think that we have a voice. Maybe they're just looking at the east side. As one of my elders said, the only reason why they're concerned about the east side is because of Juneteenth. Well, if they start really making some change to their voting, people are going to have to be like, oh, so they really are important. Yes, absolutely. No matter where we are in the state, we are going to fight. So I will make sure to continue to spread the word, to have conversations. If I could get people to there, because I realize I don't have any room on my bus. But I mean, there are other ways, and I'm hoping to work with Voice Buffalo in ways in which I can, intercede in conversations, and even I could borrow the van next door from Holy Trinity Lutheran Church and be like, all right, let me take a group of people up to get voted. Little by little, the little bit, even people think you have to do something large and huge to make an impact. No, it's literally about, like, let's borrow a van, let's get some people in the van, let's take them back and forth. You've done your part. But it also does take all of us as well.
Yes, and you brought up an interesting point. 2023 is right around the corner. That will focus hugely on our common council race. Do you have any words about that election?
So being from Chicago, one of the things I have noticed is that when I was in Chicago, in some of the places, that's what they call aldermen in Chicago, that there were a lot of offices in the neighborhoods that they were serving. So you could not only go to the office, you wouldn't have to go to City Hall, you could just go right to the office and talk with some representative. I think the Common Council needs to watch their back, because after the treatment that I received, and even a lot of my folks were like, who did you talk with? And I haven't really told them yet who I was supposed to talk with. But I think people are tired. It's really like, I think it's really vibrant that people are, like, for example, I saw in the paper yesterday, there's a rider transformation that is happening, a revolution, because people are tired of the transportation system here. So a revolution is coming, and it should be coming. And yes, we can vote these people out. I don't care what they've been doing. I don't care if they're your next door neighbor. If they're your next door neighbor and you're living in an area that is not being serviced, but their home or maybe their block where they're living in something is wrong, and we have to right that wrong.
So is there any last words that you want to talk about to the community?
I think one of the things that I've noticed over the past couple of years being here, and especially with the pandemic, is the need for mental health stability and the intersectionality between that and food sustainability. Now that may sound a little weird, but here's the deal. If you are stressed out about bills and other things, where you live, the conditions in which you live, and you don't have access to fresh fruit, fresh produce, access to food, period, then your mental state is going to deteriorate. I can't tell you how many times that I have, as we've been part of the community on the east side, that people have come to me and say, thank you so much for what you do, this is a lifesaver, and their eyes light up. And I'm not saying this to be like, pat myself on the shoulder, like literally this is real work that we're doing, and this is a real impact. And the more and more that the way we're getting out there, the word out about CGN's mobile pantry out in the public is literally through word of mouth. So I've got people telling their neighbors, and they're bringing their neighbors next door, and they're like, thank you so much, this is so helpful, this is so grateful. We don't do a lot of stuff with mental health issues. A lot of it was sort of, the layers were ripped back during the pandemic when they realized there are a lot of people who don't have access to mental health resources. And so how can we help them? You may not be able to help them because we're now trained psychologists, and spoiler alert, pastors are not therapists. Like, we can walk with you, we can do other things, but guaranteed if you have a mental health crisis, I'm literally going to call a licensed therapist, a psychotherapist, because I can't do that for you. But because of the fact that we had to pull back the layers and realize that a lot of people don't have access because of the expense, what can we do? How can we help people who have mental health issues? We feed them, like literally. I know I've had a couple of students come to me like, hey, you're gonna actually have like dinners. If I had a commercial kitchen, then absolutely I'd be doing dinners. It's something I did in my seminary internship a couple of years ago when I was in Austin, Texas, where we fed the community by actually creating meals, and so people could just sit down. The fact that you treat someone like a human being, like, I don't ask for a whole bunch of information or income verification. I don't do that. I just like, give me your first and last name, your cell, so I can stay in contact with you. Just that interaction, that human interaction, makes a difference in people's lives. So they're treated as humans. So like, I'm creating this as if you're going to a farmer's market, except it just happens to all be free.
We the people, we have the power, we have the voting power. If we don't like something, change it. Thank you, Pastor Kwame, for joining us.
Thank you.
It's been an honor to sit here and talk to you.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate it.
I can't wait to see what we do in the community
Absolutely.
together.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.